Alright, what's going on, guys? Trev back again, here to bring you another video. This one's going to be doing my second video review for X-Men Days of Future Past. This one will be the spoiler version. Alright, good stuff. So if you guys have not seen X-Men Days of Future Past yet, and you don't really want me to ruin the story, I would definitely suggest you watch the non-spoiler review before you watch the movie, and then if you end up seeing the movie and you want to hear the spoilers after, or hear us actually talk about in the comments and also me on video about the particulars of the movie, because I'm going to spoil a lot of things in this one. This is my spoiler version. The non-spoiler version was produced yesterday, so if you guys are a little weary about that, you don't know if you want to hear it spoiled yet, you haven't seen it, I would suggest you go watch that one. If you have seen it, this is the video for you. If you don't really care, then maybe you're okay with watching this one as well too, if you don't mind if I ruin some things for you. So that said, if you guys know, if you've seen my non-spoiler review version, you know that I gave this movie a 9.5 out of 10 and said basically that this is pretty much the best Marvel Comics movie I've seen so far. At least it's right up there with the best they've done, like the Avengers. It's right at the top. I think it's better than any other X-Men movie they've done previous. It has everything you could possibly want in an X-Men movie. It has like all the characters from like every single one all in one movie, spread out over time. It reflects back on all the different movies, and it has little clips, even if they're just Wolverine thoughts, even tying it back to Stryker and all these different things. It is such an incredibly dense and smart movie. It's insane. This one definitely does not have a basic story. It doesn't have a basic plot. Like, for example, the first X-Men movie, the story is fairly basic. Magneto's evil. He wants to, transform the world leaders, and basically the X-Men are there to stop him. This one is a lot more complicated than that. We have events taking place in the future. We have events taking place way back in the past, and we have them in and out simultaneously, while you have Kitty, who is essentially using her powers to phase Wolverine back in time. Now, some people, at least my girlfriend and I, Jess, she was like, hey, wait, she can't do that. She can go through objects. How could she go through time? That doesn't make sense. It's not one of her powers. Well, after I thought about it for a couple minutes, time is the fourth dimension. Of course, yeah. So and you can look into that if you want to with regards to physics. Time is the fourth dimension. So, for example, where you are right now and where you're going to be in a few minutes, the difference is the time is what changes. So time is a dimension as well. And if she is able to phase through, objects, phase through three-dimensional, surfaces or physical objects, it makes sense. I don't think it's a stretch that she could possibly phase through time or go back or project things back, consciousness, whatever. I don't think it's that big of a stretch that I personally have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it. I think it's fine and it fits and it makes sense within the X-Men world, where you have mutants with all kinds of crazy powers going around all the time. So I really like that. So I thought that was good. The everything in the future that we get to see, or I guess I'm calling it future, but everything in the sort of Sentinel time period, where the Sentinels have taken over the planet. Basically, Master Mold has created so many that they have those flying, I want to call them like pyramid things that go around and unleash all the Sentinels. Very cool. Something out of like Terminator 2, Judgment Day, a Sentinel Day, and they're just dropping them all out. And man, oh man, the effects in that time, oh, they were so sick. I want to go see the movie again just to see them all again. Probably my favorite would be how they used Blink. It reminded me of the video game Portal, if any of you guys have played it, and it looked beautiful. You've got her, she's throwing circle portals all over the place, and they're using them like they've practiced with them for years. Like these guys are, that's the best thing about the X-Men, I think, is that they're a superhero team that fight together all the time. They're not superheroes like the Justice League that are put together to fight together and usually fight by themselves and have to team up. The X-Men are well practiced team. They fight together as a team, and they use each other's abilities great. Like for example, the Colossus fastball special with Wolverine. In this one, you have the blink special, I guess you would call it, with Colossus, where she throws out the portal. He'll run through the portal. She'll put the portal maybe, I don't know, 100 feet in the air. He'll come flying down metal. He'll reach terminal velocity, as fast as he can possibly fall, and then she'll put him right in front of a Sentinel, and boom, he'll just collide into it with some amazing action scenes. So I loved everything in the future, from that to the storm, Magneto blowing up the ship, the Blackbird, to the kind of counting down while the Sentinels break in, to the Sentinels actually killing the X-Men, seeing them kill Storm. I was like, oh man, I cringe, and Sunspot and his powers were insane, make Pyro look like nothing. Iceman, getting to see like a full-grown Iceman rather than just a kid earlier on. Like he's full of age now, and he's ready to freeze an entire wall and ice slide around, and even Colossus full grown and everything, or mostly adult, I guess you would call it. You've got basically everybody there, even Bishop's powers. Oh man, I loved all the stuff in the future. So for sake of time, that's all I'll say about the future stuff. I loved it. The only plot hole, and I'm going to do a video just focusing on this, is why Professor X is still alive. Because now I'll focus more on this in the video tomorrow I'll do, or the next day, about this. But basically, Professor X is killed in X-Men 3, and even if he transferred his consciousness to the man in the after credits sequence that was basically had no consciousness, his body wouldn't be the same. He wouldn't look like Professor X. He wouldn't be bald, and he wouldn't, he wouldn't be Patrick Stewart, right? So that is a bit of a plot hole that I haven't heard explained in a way that makes sense so far. I've thought about it. He's not an astral projection. We could see in this one that he was physically living, as far as we could tell. So I don't know how you explain that. Also, some people would argue that, well, X3 is not canon anymore. Well, there's flashback sequences where you see Jean from Wolverine from X3. So how are you going to say it's not canon if he sees her in his... so it doesn't, I would say that doesn't make sense, so that's a plot hole. I can't see any way that Professor X should be alive in that state. It doesn't make sense. All right? To me personally, it doesn't make sense. Unless they had previously, maybe, okay, I don't know. If let's say they had previously used Kitty's powers to send someone back to save him, I don't know. I don't know. It's I guess I don't know. I'll focus more on that plot hole in the next video when I talk about just that. But anyway, that is one thing. But aside from that, they really tied the movies together well. All the previous events that have happened in the previous movies, we see them either in flashbacks, we see them either in characters like even Stryker being thrown in there. Oh man, amazing stuff. And okay, so let's just get it out. I couldn't say it in the spoiler, but the highlight of the movie for me, Wolverine wakes up, walks downstairs, and he sees Jean standing in the doorway. This was one of the best scenes I've ever seen in a movie, period. I absolutely loved it. I was like, oh man, it even makes you question as a viewer, is this really happening? Has he died and gone to heaven or something? Is this really going on? And then he goes to reach for it, and you see the hand grab him, and you see Cyclops. I was like, oh my gosh, this is too sick. This is just too sick. So they've retconned all the events that have happened in the past before, and it's funny how when you look at the events of those movies, it's funny how they make them look like they're so like such a struggle to survive, so much pain, so much everything. It kind of makes it seem like the worst possible reality. And now they've retconned that. They've naturally, through the story, brilliant writing, undone all those events of killing off these characters that we probably would like to see. Does it make sense? Perfectly, I think. The Phoenix shall rise again. Jean is back. That's an old X-Men storyline, right? Of course, from the 80s. Professor X is there now, even though it might not make... Well, I guess if they rewound it, it would make sense, but a bit of a plot hole there. But that's okay. We'll give him that. All the other characters back to life again, basically. Even Storm there. Even Beast and how they handled him. Man, they really did a solid job of the writing in this one. This one is smart. It's enjoyable. It's got some of the best scenes in any superhero movie ever. You've got the X-Men that feel like a family. You've got Wolverine with some great stuff. Hugh Jackman in there kicking ass. Even the first scene where he kills those guys when he wakes up in the old time. Awesome scene. Loved it. Thought it was great. And, then we go forward. We get to see Quicksilver, who was hilarious in this one. Honestly, he was way better than I thought he was going to be. When he's not slowing down time, but he's moving at such a fast pace. Everything just seems so boring to him. He's like the kid with the highest level of ADHD you could possibly imagine. He's like running around. He's pushing the bullets. He's turning them. He's doing all this stuff. He's putting the guy's fist in his face, and he's crossing the guns and all that good stuff. He was hilarious and very powerful too when you consider what he can do. So I don't know, Quicksilver in the Avengers too. Gonna have his work cut out for him, Aaron Taylor Johnson, because I thought he was awesome in this one. Really, really funny. I'm sure their take won't be that funny. There are some funny scenes in this one too. There is some good comedy. There's some great sort of political touches to it where it kind of makes you think of like war and peace and how do you solve this problem. You got to do it through peace, and Professor X kind of being right all along. Magneto's approach, turning this whole thing into a war quickly. Not even though he can't help himself, he's compelled to do it because it seems to me Magneto wants supremacy. He doesn't really want equality. So, but he kind of realizes, due to everything that this isn't the way. And in the very final, scene there, of course, with the president, you got Mystique in there and everything. I really loved it. I loved it pretty much all the way around. I thought it was great. Mystique, the way they handled her, Jennifer Lawrence in this one. Amazing, man. Some really cool fight scenes from her. The drop kick on the table. Just so many amazing. It made me think of Nightcrawler from X2, where he's bamfing around and he's beating the crap out of everybody. Just some amazing stuff that she kicks a guy in the throat, and just some awesome, awesome fight scenes from her. You want to talk about Magneto? In some of the earlier X-Men movies, he would move small objects and small things. This one, he drops like a baseball stadium on his freaking White House. He's and then turns the Sentinels around. Oh man, awesome. I would say in terms of the characters, probably the only character I thought could have been used a little bit more, they could have done a little bit more with him, was Trask. We all initially thought Peter Dinklage was going to be playing Puck when they first announced he was going to be in the movie. Even his costume looked like him, and it was kind of a psych out. He's just playing Trask. He's a regular kind of guy. He doesn't really joke around. He's pretty serious. And, I mean, it's cool to see Dinklage in another role because I'm a huge fan of Game of Thrones. But he didn't really do all that much in this movie. It's not his fault. He wasn't written in to do that much. His dialogue was pretty standard. There wasn't much he could really do with the role. It was a very serious type role from his perspective. So it was cool to have him in there. I just would like to see them do a little bit more. But aside from him, everybody else was incredible. Even, young Beast, older Beast for the quick scene we see him in. Everybody, all the characters all the way across the board made me just geek out at how well done this movie was, how incredible this movie was for a comic book movie. So well done. Let's see. So the story was one of the smartest stories we've seen in any superhero movie. It really was true to what the X-Men are, is that you can do some really complicated things with the X-Men. You can have some time travel in there. You can have some extinction elements in there, and species war, and all these different concepts. And at the end of the day, too, you can have great action. You can have all these things. And this movie really capitalized on that X-Men license, all the years of the comic books, and really gave us what we wanted as X-Men fans. At least for me. Gave me exactly what I wanted and surpassed even my highest expectations. By far the best X-Men movie so far, I would have to say. And so many amazing geek out moments. So incredibly well done. Let's see. I don't want to go on for too long in this review because I could probably talk about X-Men for 5 hours straight. So the characters, incredible. Action sequences, incredible. Story, incredible. You even had some humor mixed in there. You had some great effects. You have just so much awesomeness. Finally getting to see Sentinels on the big screen. How cool is that? The only thing I will say about them is I prefer the look of the older Sentinels. The ones from the 70s, was it? The purple ones. The futuristic ones, they don't look that cool to me, even though it makes sense that they would be that way, because they've kind of gone that route in the comic books too. Some people may say, oh, them being able to adapt to anything, that's not true to the books. It actually is. If you've read X-Men in the last few years, the newer X-Men the newer Sentinels are used to fighting mutants, and they adapt their bodies to mutants. They compensate. So, for example, if they're fighting Colossus, there's one, I forget which issue it was in, I think a couple years ago, where Sentinels were fighting against Colossus, and they noticed that he has really, like, he's insanely strong, and they're like this type. They've got them all like an archetype for each type of mutant, like an Iceman type, freeze cold mutant. They'll adapt their bodies to fight him to be resistant to that. And I really liked how they tied that back to Mystique. In the books, I don't think it was Mystique that did that, but they're able to compensate. So the strength of Colossus, they'll compensate, grab him together, and like there's a scene where they rip his arm off in the books, I remember, a few years ago, and they'll rip his arm right off. They're able to compensate themselves to deal with the mutant power they're facing. It's just the next evolution of Sentinels. So in the movie, I mean, in terms of the CG and stuff, they look pretty cool, the future ones, and they're definitely menacing. You know, the fire and the spike. The one that really got me was when it jumped and came down and stabbed Storm. I was like, oh no! Holy cow! The others are really cool too, Magneto and everybody, and wow, yeah. But probably some of my favorite stuff from the movie, I'll just go over. Wolverine waking up, my absolute favorite scene in any X-Men movie ever. In addition to that, the flashbacks of Wolverine, where you see X3, you see Jean, and and Professor, I don't want your suffering, I don't want your future, that whole thing, and even the future Professor X talking the younger self into hope, into hoping, and that will get him through. And oh man, I mean, I think I'll try to wrap it up because I don't want to go on for too long, but it was incredible. As an X-Men fan, it was exactly what we could have wanted. So I think it's justified, 9.5 out of 10. Best X-Men movie so far. Absolutely incredible the way they handled every single character all the way through, with the exception of maybe Trask, but he's just a regular human, so what can you really do with him for sake of the story? Very smart, very fun. Cannot go wrong. If you haven't seen it and you like the other X-Men movies by any chance, definitely go watch it. The after the credits scene. So I'll talk about that more in a video when I focus just on that. But basically, it's the origin of Apocalypse, which is cool. And the next X-Men movie is going to be called Apocalypse. So we kind of knew, what it was going to be. And it looks really cool. It looks really cool. I got to look up the actor who's playing Apocalypse because he looks somewhat familiar. But I don't want to say who I think it is because if I'm wrong, you'll think I'm stupid. So, but anyway, incredible movie. Incredible movie. Best, in terms of me, my favorite Marvel movie. And yes, I did like the Avengers a lot. This one's my favorite. Man, all I got to say is, as cool as the action sequences, the Hulk were, the Blink portals and Wolverine killing, and oh man, so much awesomeness. I got to go see it again. I'm going to try to go see it again this week. If you guys got to see it, let me know what you think about it. Let's talk about it's such a smart movie. There's lots of things we can talk about. Write some comments below on what you thought, what you think. If there's anything you didn't like, write them below too. We can talk about that as well. And your favorite parts. Please write a couple of your favorite parts from the movie. You guys know what mine are. I'd like to hear what yours are. If you like the video, please below thumb it up, like the video. If you want to support the channel, add it to favorites. Check out the link in the description for superherostuff.com. You can buy some awesome X-Men t-shirts and awesome X-Men stuff there. And so let me know what you guys think. I'll call it here. That's it for this video, guys. I'll see you for the next one. 2 more X-Men Days of Future Past videos to come. Strap, saying peace.